Welcome to Target Market Insights, the multifamily and marketing podcast. Each week, John Kasman interviews multifamily and marketing experts to teach you how to find the best places to invest, attract investors, and grow your portfolio. You are listening to Target Market Insights with your host, John Kasman.
Welcome to Target Market Insights, the multifamily and marketing show. I'm your host, John Kasman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. Now, if you're enjoying this show, I need you to do me one quick favor and leave us a 5-star rating and review so you don't miss an episode. Now, today we're going to be talking to Josh McCallen. Josh McCallen is a renowned entrepreneur, investor, conference speaker, producer, and podcast host with a deep expertise in the hospitality industry. Now, Mr. McCallen is the co-founder of Accountable Equity and the CEO of VivaMe Hospitality, which specializes in complex value-add hospitality development and management. Let's welcome to the show, Josh McCallen.
Woo. John, I'm here. I just need another second on my 5-star. I've just written my first sentence. Everybody on iTunes, 5-star. Please, John Kasman is the best. By the way, your show is incredible. It's so well produced. I'm so glad to be on such a pro show, man. You're great, John.
Oh, man, thank you. I appreciate it. We got a great team that helps us pull this thing together. Josh, I went very quickly and high level over your background. We're going to get into more of it, but why don't you take a minute and give us a little more context of your experience?
Yeah. And by the way, thanks for reading those nice letters that are written by our team. That's true. We get to do the core competency that got us into capital raising was the fact that we build out and restore resorts, usually ones that have tremendous intrinsic value, but that are in value add need. So that's how we got into the business of real estate development over the years. But now today, I'm so grateful. My lovely wife, Melanie, and I lead Accountable Equity, which is really the investor side of everything we do. We turned it into something called an investor community, and together we buy assets and we buy really wealth builders. All our friends are multifamily guys, so I'm a big fan of multifamily. We just happen to be in the world of value add resort, and it's similar and also different. So that's what we do every day is both a combination of leading a professional team of hospitality professionals and leading a strong and growing team of capital asset managers, actually.
Yeah. And listen, there's so many different, investing niches, right? I mean, from self-storage to hotels to multifamily and mobile parks and all these other things, right? And you guys are in a space of resorts, and I know we haven't talked to anyone on this show about resort investing. So this is something interesting and maybe a little bit new and different for many of our listeners. The first question I have to ask is, how did you wind up getting into the resort space?
John, by the way, thank you for coming to see the resort. So you know they're real. You can kick the tires. But the story is fun. I don't want to take too much of the time, but I got to tell you the tidbits if you don't mind. So we grew up in a nice little family. My poor mom had a stroke at 28, so she never worked again. So my little brother and I were the only 2 kids. Dad had left. And so we just grew up working and kind of struggling a little bit financially. So I just enjoy hard work, and I'm probably like you that way. I enjoy adding value, just being with people. So that was my upbringing, is working. I actually had a 40-hour gig at 16 on. I've never not had a 40-hour gig while we went to high school and stuff. So growing from that, I had this dream. Growing up without a dad, I watched a lot of This Old House as a kid in the 80s. And I don't know why, but I just loved This Old House. Remember This Old House predated all HGTV and and all the flipping and the concepts. And I have to admit, it left a big impression on a young kid. It made me kind of handy around the house. And I always dreamed of being a developer, but didn't have a path. So fast forward, I did what a lot of kids do, is that you work hard to get into college. Went to college, did nicely. Actually studied some interesting stuff. We wanted to teach, so we did history. I actually studied theology, and I taught high school kids civics and economics, believe it or not. And then from that, got an MBA. While I was doing the MBA, I got the job. So I could, it's kind of like a house hack, but only a college hack. So if you're doing your MBA for the school you work for, you don't have to pay for it. So I became an international recruiter of college kids. And while I'm doing my MBA, end up traveling the world, recruiting kids to these schools, end up getting a chance to move the family to Europe for 4 years and run a campus over there, or partly run a campus, co-lead. a campus in Austria, like Sound of Music stuff, where Maria von Trapp probably was singing on the hills somewhere behind the campus. It was so pretty. Did that for 4 years, came back, and the goal was, how do I transition all this wonderful life experience into the world of land development? So, John, we actually tried to find a backdoor into it, and we went through lending. And we said, if no one's going to hire me to be a land developer because I have an MBA and I've worked in Europe, that's not going to get me there. And I don't actually know how to build a house. All right. So what I did was I became a lender. And as a lender, I just met all the developers and networked. Eventually got an incredible lifetime opportunity where one guy gave me a shot. He was building $5 million beachfront flips, believe it or not. It was the heyday. And I was his project manager for some of them just because he had too many going on at once. He just needed people who cared about him to take care of the projects. Not so much that I came from an engineering background, but I came from an I care background. And you probably see this too. Sometimes the best people you can work with are the people who say, I care. I'll make sure this goes right as best I can. Anyway, fast forward 2 years into it, I'm a GC for him now. We became a GC firm and I was one of the leaders, and we were building like famous people houses, in the Philadelphia resort market, which is New Jersey, ironically. So New Yorkers and Philadelphians love the Jersey beaches, the shore, we call it. And I got to build the John Middleton house, which is the guy from the Phillies. Barely. I only did a little there, but I always think that's pretty cool. And then, of course, football players and cool stuff. Then the recession started, and I shifted gears and became a business owner myself. Long story short, we were featured in a book about Don't Quit. When you're featured in a book, a best-selling Amazon book called Don't Quit, it means you probably should have quit. Like, we went through this really tough time after the recession. Melanie and I lost everything because I put everything in on business building, and we really struggled. And boy, did it kick our butt so well that we came out of the recession with larger muscles. Just like any challenge, you can choose to grow muscles or get too fatigued. And we tried to grow our muscles of selling and leadership and making prudent choices, but also being aggressive. So from that point forward, I helped that same guy from the boom days fix up his old hotel asset. So what happened was he had been buying waterfront hotels in the boom days and pulling them down and building condos and houses. It was a great model for him. Well, he got stuck with one dumperooski on the beach, and he owned it during the whole recession because he couldn't do anything with it. And we brainstormed and came up with this. I'm a Michael Gerber E-Myth guy. So I said, well, since you own a dumpy hotel and the whole East Coast is full of dumpy waterfront hotels in really rich areas, but they're dumpy, why don't we come up with a business model that restores hotels and flips them instead of house flipping? That was my first idea. So we called it our franchise prototype. And so we did everything as best we could. We hired an HGTV designer to help us reconceive of dumpy hotels. And we just became an expert in how do you design a hotel in an old building that is modern feeling, but respects the old history, can charge enough money to pay the bills, which is a lot of money, by the way. It's like $400, $500, $600 a night. That's a lot of money you have to charge to pay the bills at the beach. But you got to add enough value. So anyway, long story short, that went all right, the first one, because we had our heads were a little twisted. We thought building a pretty building made you a successful hotel business, and we thought we could hire third-party operators. You can typically hire third-party hotel managers. If you and I, John, if we raise a little bit of money and buy a Fairfield Inn by Marriott on the side of the highway outside of Cincinnati, all you and I need to do is raise the capital. You and I can hire a third-party manager, and they will run that as well as you and I probably could. But when you go to the resort level, where there's a lot more human interaction, a lot more than at Fairfield Inn, and a lot more ways to sell things to the guest, meaning services and amenities, that level of challenge is exponential compared to the Fairfield Inn Marriott. And we didn't know that. Like, I wouldn't have known that. Maybe you don't know that. Maybe you think, oh, a hotel's a hotel. Well, there's like an exponential number of challenges when you try to do a resort. And then there's even more when you try to do a seasonal resort that charges a heck of a lot of money. So long story short, that's how we built our expertise. We got our butt kicked there too for about 2 years. We struggled really bad. By the end of the third year, we were ranked the 7th best American hotel, period, in the whole country out of 55,000, and it was all service. We changed our focus. We got out of the building concept of the priority, and we made the people the priority. And you might think that sounds pretty and cute, but we mean like brass tacks, like ripped apart our whole company and figure it out. Love construction. We will never give up on construction, but at the end of the day, you can actually love a property. You and your lovely family can go on a stay at a property that's pretty good, but fall in love with it because you were treated like queens and kings. Or you can go to the world's prettiest hotel, be treated mediocre or terribly, and hate the place. So isn't that interesting? So what we came up with is this principle of, this is part of that whole capital hacking, that actually you can get exponentially more value for a real estate deal if you focus on the service. It's almost like a secret weapon. Like the building has to be good, but if I lay it down on service, you'll pay us more, love us more, and we'll become nationally ranked.
No, I love that, Josh. I mean, that's a great growth there. And we're going to dig into that a little bit deeper about that service side of it. I want to recap a little bit for those who are jogging on the treadmill right now or miss some of what Josh just laid out. But you really started more in education, coming with your upbringing, getting into education, moving your family to Europe and Austria. You knew you wanted to get into land development, start off on the lending side. From there, you run into you said this quote, you came across this guy who gave you your shot, the first guy who gave you the shot.
Absolutely.
And you said you didn't have an engineering background, but you had an I care background. I love that. I care background. He talked about being featured in the book, Don't Quit. And that notion that if you ever get featured in a book called Don't Quit, maybe you should have quit. So something to think about there. But the point you said after that, though, about growing muscles, right? Growing muscles are getting fatigued. That's really important. And anybody who's going through that challenge, whether it be through COVID or anything else that's going on in your world, if you feel like you've hit some walls, you took some lumps, you took a couple L's, it's easy to say, well, look, man, maybe real estate's not it. Maybe whatever is not it. And I think the reality is that you're getting your lessons, and once you have that knowledge, you have that experience, you have those lessons, you know what to fix, you know what to change, and you can use that experience to grow and actually see success now that you've taken these losses. So sometimes if you're going through it, you just got to keep going through it, right? Just to really make sure that you achieve success. So great points there. Let's talk more about the dumpy hotels, because you talked about these dumpy hotels in the East Coast. And I mean, many of us have seen hotels, crappy hotels in great, locations.
Exactly.
You and your partner, you guys took this hotel, you renovated it, but you said there are a lot of lessons there from really the service side of it. First and foremost, explain the difference between a resort and a hotel.
Oh, thanks for asking that. People never ask that. Yeah, just think of it this way, guys. The reason why our investors are excited about what we're doing, a resort has multiple revenue streams. So if you're the investor and you're listening to this, say you're one of us capital syndicators, or maybe one of people that joined John on passive assets like I'm looking at doing, because he does an incredible job. If you're a passive investor or an active investor, you might realize that the way to change commercial value, this is like the Bigger Pockets story, right? The BRRRR from Bigger Pockets is based on you fixing up the house so it's as good looking as the neighbor house, and then it's worth more, you get a new loan, right? Now, John knows where I'm going to go with this. But in the businesses John and I do, it's actually not whether or not we're as pretty as the neighbor's house. It's whether or not we add more revenue and then ultimately profit. And John, I'm sure you've taught your audience this, but they know that the whole shocking thing about commercial real estate is that if you change the profit, say it takes 1 year, 2 years, you immediately change the value of the building. Now, why did I tell you all that? A resort has so many ways to change the profit. It could be run poorly and it could become a loss, or it can be run aggressively and with purpose and it become a massive profit generator. Now, that's the difference. If you want to summarize as an investor, why buy a hotel? Why buy a resort? You buy a hotel, especially a branded hotel, a Marriott model, because you know it will have a yield somewhere in the high 8% to 10% on a good year. And it'll be great, because that'll be something you hold for the rest of your life. And by the way, people can buy Marriotts. You have to pay a lot of fees and you have to go through all this program. But you and I could buy a Marriott. We may not legally be allowed to run it, though, just so you know, because there's all these rules. But over here in the resort world, we get to sell you the room, which, remember, Marriott focuses on pretty much just selling you the room. And they do the best job at it, I think, in the business. So we can sell you the room. Then we can sell you breakfast and dinner, lunch, of course, too. Then we can sell you a golf round because our resort has a golf course, or our next resort has a marina on top of everything. And then here's the part that people don't pick up on. They say, I don't want a restaurant. I don't think they're good things. Well, what if we put the largest wedding business in America into that restaurant? And weddings are running at between 45 and 50% gross profit to you, the investor. Now, do you want to own that fantastic restaurant? Probably. So we just sold our 10 millionth contract dollar on weddings, and they're for the year 21 and 22. So we almost are. So resorts have that other power that hotels may or may not have. We can sell revenue in the future today. A lot of times a hotel on the side of a highway has 50% occupancy a month out. A week out, they have 75%. Then they dump the room rates, and all of a sudden they're up to 85% for the weekend. For the last 5 rooms, they give them away, right? Pretty cheap. That's how it works. So they have no revenue for 2022. They have the revenue for 2020 this week. We have revenue right now that have already been contracted for 2022. Most of the year is sold out. And we have the cash too. So resorts have some secrets that people don't talk about ever. Even you in multifamily, you can sign a lease with Jimmy and Jenny and whatever, but you don't actually have their money for the year 2022 yet. We actually have their money for the year 2022 and a lot of it. Not that's, I'm just telling you, it creates these extra securities for us investors.
Well, it's cash flow. I mean, right? I mean,
lots
at the end
of
of
cash
the
flow.
day, the game is cash flow, right? How much income did you bring in across how many expenses do you have? And if you can get revenue in advance, a year, 2 years in advance, that's going to increase your cash flow. That's going to make life a little bit easier for you to manage things that are going on, make it easier to manage renovations and all sorts of other things. So that cash flow is really big. Let's dive deeper, just because I think it's really interesting as you compare, multifamily hotels, and obviously we're big multifamily guys, but multifamily hotels and resorts, and talking about these additional revenue streams.
Yes.
Because when we think about value add, a lot of times, yes, it's how do you get someone to pay more money in rent, right? If rent's $1,000, if we were to fix up the kitchen, put in stainless steel, put in granite countertops, put in natural wood floors, maybe someone was willing to pay $200 more, and that rent goes up to $1,200. But it's not just about the rental income. Value add can also be the different amenities. It could be through, a package center, or adding a dog park, or it could be actual revenue amenities,
Yes,
such as laundry services or short stay rentals or things like that are maybe a little newer, a little more unique, parking, charging for parking and all those kind of things. And as you talk about, hotels and resorts, I mean, hotels, certainly there's some fees or some additional revenue centers that you can add, but resorts, I mean, you talked about golf and weddings and restaurants. I mean, those golf and weddings, those outings, first of all, those are experiences. And as you and I talked about previously, I come from the marketing world, and I did a lot of event marketing. We created a lot of experiences for brands.
Yep.
And experiences are what change people's perceptions. You can go in and have an experience, and it will shift the way you view things, whether it's a brand, whether it is a venue, and those memories are there. As a matter of fact, short story, yesterday, we did an Olympics around our neighborhood. And my wife, everyone has to pick a country. All the main countries are always picked. So we always are scrambling for a country. We picked Costa Rica, and we picked it just because it's our favorite vacation spot that my wife and I had. And we loved Costa Rica for the experience that we had there. So, just to think about the way experiences play off, especially when it comes to vacations and, lounging. I mean, this is what most people work for. You work 40 hours a week to get that 1 or 2 vacations a year to justify it, right? So talk a little bit more about kind of the revenue side of it, but then also the service and the experience side that your team focuses on.
Well, John, you and I have talked about this. I mean, you had one of those elite W-2 jobs where you built brands. I mean, I remember talking to you about that. I think even in the automotive space as well. And the experiences you designed were world class. And you're right. So transmit that all the way down to a microcosm of one family at a time. And that's what we do. So you did it on this grand scale. We can do it on the grand scale too, but not as well as you, meaning you designed the whole thing and rented spaces and built things out for.
I had a big team to help me too. So.
Yes, you did. So we do too, by the way. That's the other trick here is we're not a mom and pop. That's why you probably went into multifamily just like we went into resorts. We can apply our expertise and our passion and our leadership and get what we call capital hacking, where you can put a whole team together. And now we can generate massive capital because humans are the biggest part of the capital, not just the cash. You need us. You need us. We need each other. So bottom line is back to service, I think, was one of your key questions there. So how do you do what we do in any industry? I was just on a privileged, you and I know Jay Scott pretty well. And Jay Scott had us on his show, The Bigger Pockets Business, about a month and a half ago, maybe. And he wanted to know our 3 core values and how that changes the valuation of businesses. And so we shared that. So for those of you who are driving around, we broke this down for any business and we simplified it to 3 words. And we're about to share with you what we think changes the experience for guests. In our case, guests. In your case, maybe residential home renters. And we said, listen, okay, we're going to break a few paradigms here. One, we do believe business is its own thing. And we kind of used to believe in that principle. It's business, not personal. It's not personal, it's just business. And look, I get what that saying means. But at the end of the day, haven't we all been in a situation where we are in business transactions and it's actually mostly the personal that matters? The way we're treated, the respect, the disrespect, the all kinds of different elements of personal affects business. I kind of think we need to recognize that. So what we say is instead of telling people business is not personal, what we say, this is interesting. We think it comes down to who we hire and who we put on the team, John. Okay. And we want to ask you, we don't care what background you come from, how much English you speak. It doesn't really matter. It means, do you want to get on the field and play the sport with us? If you want to, it's the I care attitude, right? So we have boiled this down to 3 questions in any interview, whether you're joining us on housekeeping team, my favorite, or you're joining us at front desk, or you're joining us in the sales team, which is our elite sales team we've put together here from joining the company, or us in leadership with finance and anything. And we say the same 3 core questions. Will you join us on this mission? We're on a team, and a team literally means we have to win. So we don't mean team soft and fuzzy, and there's no pictures on the wall that say teams, acronyms. I'm not even talking about any fuzzy stuff here. I'm saying literally Michael Jordan wouldn't let you play on his team unless you wanted to win, because everybody only gets 2 choices, win or lose. We all get on this team together and we can lose tonight, and I don't want to lose. If we lose because we tried and didn't get there, totally fine. If we lose because nobody tried, not cool. So very much like we all get to know who Michael Jordan is now from Last Dance, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to do the Michael Jordan kind of attitude. So here's what we say. You seem like a wonderful, wise marketer, John. In this case, you are. But can I share with you our 3 core values? And this is your interview. This is us paraphrasing your interview. It doesn't make you a great person or a bad person if you agree with this or disagree with this. I'm not judging anybody. I'm just telling you this is how our team works. So if you want to be on our team, here's the 3 core values. And if you love these 3 core values, you're going to love it here. You're going to probably perform at your top level because we're trying to do these 3 and we're not perfect. Joy. Do you enjoy the work you're asking to do with us? Because we seek in the interview process to make sure you actually like the work you're good at. John, you've been in the world. You've met people that are incredibly smart engineers but hate their life. It tends to pull the whole team down, even though they're technically skilled but emotionally hate their life. We don't even really want that. You know what I'm saying? You kind of see where I'm going with this. Do you enjoy the work you do and that you want to do with us? That's on you, Mr. or Mrs., whoever you are. You have to decide that. 2, will you join us to seek humility as a core value? Look, none of us are perfect. We're not saints here. We're not that great of people. We're trying to be great people, right? But humility has to be talked about as a team. And here's what we mean by that. Do you want to choose a worldview that believes every single person on the team and as a guest has the same infinite dignity and worth as you do? If you want to be on a team where you're respected that way, where you must respect others that way, and then do all the things that means. So what does that mean? It means if John calls me and says, Josh, I'm struggling over here, I need help. Like, I don't care what your role is, please get over and help John. Or if Jennifer says, I lost 2 shifts here, nobody's coming in, I need help. Doesn't matter what executive level, you go help Jennifer. Or if the toilet's backing up in the restaurant, you go help that toilet. Why? Because you care. That's 2, humility. We can only really have you on the team if you're seeking it. Are you perfect? No. Are we perfect? No. And then 3 is really surprising. It took me 5 years in hospitality to figure this one out, but I think this is the one that distinguished us. And we tell everyone that we're doing this as a ministry. Will you join us in a ministry for your own life? And we have to define this, so we always do. So we say joy, humility, and ministry are our 3 core values. So what does ministry mean? For us, it means no matter what task is needed, whether it be delivering, in our case, delivering a cheeseburger or fixing a wall because somebody broke it, we are doing it to show love to the guest. So the goal isn't just to fix the wall or deliver a cheeseburger or the best wine you've ever had. It's to show you, the person, we love you. And we don't mean love like Kim Kardashian, though she's probably a pretty good lady. She loves perfume and pizza and whatever. She probably doesn't love pizza, by the way, but she loves perfume. I mean love like your mom. Remember the best days with your own mom when she would put up with you when you were not feeling well or sick or whatever. She loved you no matter what. And so we actually mean, do you want that? And like when people show up off the street coming from the big casinos, because we're near casinos, or working at Marriott for 25 years, like nobody ever asked me that. What we're doing is we're just simply saying, do you want it? Whatever your mission is in life, it's different than mine. Do you want to live your life on purpose? And do you want to kind of show the guests that they're valuable or staff? So those 3 core values are how we interview. And by doing that, we do that for our investors. Actually, what the coolest part is, our investors, hundreds of them now, have been to our trainings for our staff. So we ended up deciding through some of our investors telling us, why don't I just give those same values to our capital group called Accountable Equity and just say that to the investors up front. What do I mean? I mean, like, investors, do you want to join us on a mission in Accountable Equity that builds joy, that's based on joy, humility, and ministry? If you don't, like, so say those things bother you and you're like, why is Josh even talking about them? No matter how great our deals are, and they're great, they're double-digit wealth builders, don't join us. Not because I don't love you. I care about you, but you're not going to be happy here because this is all we do. And we try to build this into our culture here and there. And look, John, just like you chose to get into this business because you felt you wanted to live your life by intention. And for Melanie and I, we want to live our life doing good for others. And so this is what we're trying to do.
And how challenging was it to really implement those values? You talked about that first hotel or that first hotel kind of converting to this resort, challenges the first year, starting to turn the ship around year 2, year 3, kind of number 7 places to visit in the country. You say country or the world, by the way?
Country. Probably top 100 in the world on TripAdvisor.
Top 100 in the world.
Worldwide ranking. Yeah. They even got a plaque on the wall. They even mail you something when you're in the top 25 in America.
Love it. So how did you implement?
So it didn't go well.
These principles.
Yeah, great question. So nothing goes easy. Nothing goes smoothly. We didn't know what we didn't know. All we knew is our guests. I think you're getting at the fact that when we built the building and gave it over to other managers, and the F word was super common at the front desk because the guests were just being mismanaged and rooms were being mismanaged, and people hate that. That's where it all started for us, was we realized how fragile the service industry is in hospitality. I also believe it's very fragile in residential multifamily. Because
so, hey, Josh, just to be clear, so that first one,
yeah,
you guys handled the renovation. You turned it over to a third-party management company.
Yep.
You realized what was happening and decided to take over the management. Okay.
Sorry for adding extra levels to this confusion. Interesting story. But yeah, no. So at first we didn't want to be the managers. It wasn't until we realized how much struggle they were going through that we realized we cannot sacrifice our guests or completely destroy our business because they're struggling so much. So yeah, we did take over. So the first few years, it didn't go so smooth. But what we've taken from how to do this, so whatever business you're in or whatever I'm in, we took baby steps. So the way we did it was we declared our mission or our vision of how to do this. And by the way, we improved our terminology. We improved our description every year. One simple thing we said was we're going to meet every single week and talk about the why, WHY. As a staff, whether you're in the janitorial staff or the executive finance staff, you have to be at this one meeting every week where we go over the why. And we now have come up with all kinds of training techniques. But at first, it was simple. Here's our core values. Every week we have new staff, right? It's hospitality. There's a lot of shifting. Every week we thank the people who did the work last week, and we recognize in gratitude all the hard work they're doing and call them out. Because sometimes in our business, you get reviews online. And when you get the review, we get to see that Jenny was amazing or Samuel was amazing. And we're going to thank them and go over why they did what they did. Okay, so we did that every single week. We called it our culture meeting. Now it's pretty sophisticated how I do it with our new companies. I don't lead it anymore. Our whole team leads it, and it's dynamic and wonderful. And sometimes visitors from other companies come in just to see how we're doing what we're doing, because we're in coronavirus now, and yet we're still growing every week. So it's kind of revolutionary that people are when people find something they feel really loved, they will come to you. So we're growing. But no, so I would say the key here was a weekly meeting and a super ridiculous commitment to it, and a commitment to it that you were willing to have people quit a few times. Turnover's okay with us as long as we're being honest. And there's often this, it doesn't happen that much anymore because now the culture of the program is so rich that when they show up to work with us, and no matter what department, there's so many other good people here that they kind of fall in love with the culture. And if they don't, we never judge it. No judgment. We just say, hey, we understand it's not for everybody. And we have that comfort and peace of mind that for those it's not for, we're not going to badmouth them or whatever. We're going to actually help them find their next job if that's what they ask of us, because we're out here to help people. And if they do love it and they struggle with a technical skill, we'll work with them until they can do their job well and enjoy their work. So it takes time.
No, I love that, man. Listen, and I will tell you from being at the facility at Renault in particular, I was really impressed with the staff, and it wasn't just really the work they were doing. We actually had a chance to talk kind of behind the scenes and understand the story. And, maybe you can give a little bit more context of the story of Renault in particular. But I know there was a gentleman who was there as general manager, I believe, and he had been there for a long time.
27 years.
27 years. 27. Could you imagine working for a place 27 years? So he's seen everything, right? And the joy and pride he had in watching not just the renovation, but really the revitalization of the venue with what was going on. I just think it spoke volumes to the work you guys do. Not so much, like I said, with the design, that's all beautiful and great, but kind of just underscoring the service side of it and the way you build teams. And I think for our listeners, the takeaway is how to really build culture in a way that thrives and push your business forward. And I think that's where you've thrived in the resort and hospitality space, is creating the culture of success, tapping into these three principles of joy, humility, and ministry. So maybe you could just talk a little bit about that and what kind of the undertaking it was to take Renault from where it was.
Yeah. And you're doing the best job interviewing of anybody, because I actually you're helping me probe this a little bit. If you combine the way we treat people, the three core values, and the word team, and you realize that we're not softies. So if you are a great person, like you really are a great person, but you really don't do a great job, then we work with you for a period of time. And if you're showing that you're giving up on getting any better at answering the phone and not losing revenue or whatever it is that you were asked to do, then we do ask you to go. So we're not softies. We're more like tough coaches. So we'll coach you into great skill. And if you fail to have the skill, we're going to either relocate you to a better spot for your personality or ask you to move on. Not because we hate you, but because it's not good for you to be in a spot where you're failing and struggling that much it wears you out. So anyway, that's another key thing about culture building, guys, is at the end of the day, John, you and I have been around masterminds and things like that where people challenge us to say, what's your why? Why are you getting into multifamily or fundraising? And you have to search. And for those like you and I who care deeply about the investors as well as the assets, it probably wasn't the answer. I want to drive a fancy car. It may, nothing against fancy cars, but that our biggest reason probably was either freedom for our family or adding to our life's work for our kids or our investors. All we're saying is live by your why and be comfortable. Okay, so for us, Melanie and I, now we're in our mid-40s. We have 10 children. We've kind of figured out our why, but maybe we would have known it even in our 20s. I don't know. We're okay with not having this business if it doesn't conform with what we feel we should be doing in life. So we've kind of put it out there, and it's attracted the right people. It's kind of that law of attraction in a sense, So I suggest everybody does that with their business, right, John? So whatever your core values are, perhaps it's best and fair to share them with people before they ever join you, because then you'll weed out the people that aren't happy with you anyway, and you'll attract the right people, and your team will get super strong and powerful. I think I answered your question, but if I didn't, you can punch me.
No, absolutely. Listen, Josh, great information. I always enjoy talking to you about just in general, but really the way you've built such a strong culture and helping us understand, the approach to service and hospitality and how that differs, just from investing in hotels. Yeah. Are you ready to move on to our bullseye round?
Yes, except for I think you've got to hear this crazy fact I got to share with you real quick.
Okay, let me hear it.
Which is, we've all heard of this gentleman named Warren Buffett, right? I think most people have a certain respect for this gentleman where he sees intrinsic value when the market turns on an asset, like trains and Coca-Cola and McDonald's and all that kind of stuff. This, between us girls, as we say, is the time of buying resorts, because we are buying into the worst media blitz on hospitality ever in your lifetime or mine. It's hilarious. I've been doing events. Actually, the event I just did with you where we caught up again, and people called me afterward and they're like, I came to that event just because I couldn't believe anybody who was in hospitality investing had the guts to get on the internet. I'm like, hold on, guts. Listen, this might be literally our best time ever in a lifetime to buy hospitality assets, because we're buying them depressed values and our whole business is turnaround anyway. So it's not like we think we're going to make money next weekend. We don't buy stable stuff. We buy desperately needy stuff, but that has core intrinsic value. So anyway, I just throw that out there that people are listening to this whole show, John, and they haven't heard you beat me up. I just want to let you know, John and I both know that there's not one positive piece of media about hospitality, which if you were Warren, he would say, be greedy when they're fearful. And that's why we actually just raised millions of dollars last month, and we're still finishing, because people are joining us on our next round of acquisitions.
Awesome. I love it, man. And you're spot on too, man. I guess I wasn't hard enough on you. This is the problem when I
you can be harder on me, man. You're a tough guy.
It's all right. You know what? I think part of it is that, the thing that I wanted to harp in on is just the difference between the sectors, because at the end of the day, experiences are very different from hotels. I mean, if you need a room to live in, that's very transactional, right? There's no emotion behind that. You could go on, there's apps, and you're looking at it, say, if this hotel is $129 and that one's $119, I'm taking the one that's $119. Like, there's some of that, there's no value beyond a room for whatever you're doing. However, if you're talking about a resort, you're talking about a full-on experience. You're talking about probably someone's annual vacation. Maybe it's the only annual vacation they take, right? Maybe they take two. Maybe they take one every other year. So there's a different experience, a different expectation that comes out of that. And regardless of where we are today in the economy, people value those experiences. Travel is still one of the main things young people love to do. It's the number one thing I think many of them like to do, more so than buying a house. Many of them would rather travel. So the resort industry is still positioned well financially. I mean, that's a whole other ordeal, and we certainly didn't go deep into the numbers today. But I think more importantly is just to understand that people still value experiences. And if you're going to be traveling around the country, traveling around the world, Airbnb is still on fire. The RV business is on fire. And I think that any place that focuses on the experience that a customer has is positioned to do well. With that said, let's move on to our bullseye round. All right, give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
We joked about it, but the book called Don't Quit on Amazon, where I'm featured as one of the articles, was us buying a franchise business in 2009 because the recession started. And boy, did we actually lost it. We bought a restaurant cleaning company, and I thought, I could hire a bunch of people. Totally missed the fact of culture. Totally missed the fact of hard selling processes. I thought you buy a franchise, they give you customers, right? Doesn't work that way usually. And boy, did we get our ass handed to us. And Melanie and I had a wonderful epiphany during all that, where she just felt so betrayed that I failed. And I turned to her one night when she was just beating me up. She was beat up. I mean, by the way, I'm not judging her. I'm saying she was right. I was wrong. And I said, honey, what if this is the middle of the movie? What a great middle of the movie, like it's like when Rocky looks like he could never win and he gets back up and he fights through, or every action movie you and I have ever seen in our life. So it really felt like the middle of the movie, and that was like an epiphany that hit us, and then we've been on a tear ever since. So losing the franchise business, baby.
I don't love you losing a franchise, but I love you saying, what if this is the middle of the movie? I mean, that's something that, anybody going through a hard time, if you could just say that to yourself, maybe this is just the middle of the movie.
Yeah, because you can't have a good end unless you have a tough middle.
That's right. I love it, man. All right. Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
Oh, a digital or mobile? Okay, we are in, I hate to be so specific, but we're a wedding-focused revenue generator. So we use the knot.com, and it's been so freaking prolific. I think we literally are the highest selling wedding venue in America. So I think we just sold our 390th wedding in a year and a half by using that primary resource plus Instagram. And that's a good point. We use Instagram as social proof of why you already chose to visit us. So we are open-minded to getting better at every other digital marketing technique. So I need your help.
Give me the book you recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
I mean, I definitely know what it is. So I'm struggling because I'd like to do two, but you won't let me do two. Here's the fastest read. I'll go with fastest read, the biggest life-changing quicker. It's a short book, 2.5 hours for a non-good reader. I'm not the greatest fast reader, so don't worry. It's a short book. Og Mandino's The Greatest Salesman in the World. Og Mandino's Greatest Salesman in the World. It's a fable, and it teaches you how to evaluate your own mindset and create value. And it's for any business. And actually, it doesn't matter if you're in sales or not. It's actually not about sales. I don't know why they wrote it that way, but probably the best. Og Mandino is the greatest salesman in the world.
Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
All right, be honest with you, brother. I'm weak at daily habits, but I'm getting so much better every day, and I'm using Miracle Morning. Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. He's part of the GoBundance tribe that I'm in, and I think I'm doing like 50-50. 50% of my days, I'm starting with that whole process. So it's so much better than zero where I used to be.
What's one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were starting out?
Here's what it is. Share the accolades. Share the accolades. You probably noticed that our team is really behind everything. And so the word we try to use it. I hope I was okay on this. If I go back to the recording, I don't hope I was rarely used and we was used more. So the number one thing I would teach a young Josh is to focus on the we, the power of we.
What are you curious about right now?
I'll tell you what I'm curious about is the effect of stimulus dollars on real assets. So I lump real assets, which is real estate, which is where our expertise, as well as any other hard asset. Usually it's precious metals. I'd like to see every day I'll read an article on how the two correlate because we have a lot of stimulus. So I'm a major advocate of buying buildings right now.
There you go. And Josh, where are you located?
Family outside of Philadelphia, a lovely little town called Springfield. Geographically, we're doing the whole Eastern Seaboard right now. Our next acquisition's near Annapolis, Maryland, on the water. It's gorgeous. So we're kind of doing really well here in the Mid-Atlantic.
All right, let's go Springfield. I'm going to give you Philly as well, but give me the best place to grab a bite that's not one of your places.
No, yeah. Look, let's just stay iconic and go with Pat's Cheesesteaks. If you're visiting Philly, please hit Pat's Cheesesteaks and just feel it out. That in 10 minutes will give you the entire Philly culture. They're not exactly that pleasant to you, so it's just like
That's it is. All right. We'll make sure we put that on the list here. All right. Listen, Josh, always fun talking to you, man. I really appreciate it. I think that for me, a couple of the takeaways are, as you're looking to grow, think about, experiences, particularly when it comes to the hospitality space. It's not just hotels, but thinking about resorts and places where you can actually create an experience that has multiple revenue streams that you can add on, like weddings, like golf, especially things that you can kind of pre-book and get compensated for up front. Really great business model that you have there. And I think more importantly was just really understanding how to build culture, how to understand your mission, your values, and how to create a platform to instill those values in your team to kind of create the culture that you really need to grow and to thrive and to just, have that clear beacon so everyone knows what their job is, the role they play on the team, and they have value and purpose. Josh, for listeners who want to get in touch with you, learn a little bit more, what is the best way for them to reach out?
I just can't compliment you enough, John. You are a phenomenal team member and you're a phenomenal leader of a tribe. So I'm so glad to be part of your community. Please, everyone, if you're not finished your 5-star iTunes review, I'm almost done mine. I've been double tasking. Visit us at just Accountable Equity, spelled out, all the letters, accountableequity.com, and find out why thousands now have joined our community in some way or another, and many have invested with us. We're so grateful.
Thank you, Josh. Pleasure talking to you, man. And we'll talk to you again soon, okay?
Thank you, buddy.